All right, so you asked my thoughts on polygamy. Now, if it's coming from I feel like it's possible. It's definitely, first of all, it's not about my feelings, okay? It's definitely 1000% possible and can be practical. However, just like many sacred things, modern society has flipped, twisted, and turned polygamy into something that actually is pushes people away from it, or, manifests itself as self-defeatist. But here's my idea about it all. For polygamy, they say that polygamy is more so for social structure, social stature. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Now that I think of it, I feel like polygamy is fine in certain situations. If a person has not yet, how do I explain this? I have so many things I'm trying to put into words. So there's a couple things. One, now I personally believe, just like energy, there's a divine feminine counterpart and there's a divine masculine counterpart in all creation. Now, with that, as it manifests into humans, a lot of times the way that people have been operating, we're supposed to have both within us, but we're supposed to know how to know which role to assume when in the presence of another, right? So it's like on my own, I could be Chloe, right? I could be a balanced being. So that means I can go out here and I can have a successful business. I can do anything, get my career. I can get my, do all these things, create a structure for myself, while also yielding to my own truth. So let's say balance and practice, and this is just an example, balance and practice for me could say, okay, let's say I was hypothetically passionate about planting, right? That's what my subconscious, that's what my feminine aspect, that's what my source energy, my essence is of. That's what the silent whisper is of. Somebody who's into natural living, growing plants, farming, right? And let's say I have my masculine side. Well, I may not be able to just sit back and twiddle my thumbs and wait for a farm to fall out the sky, even though that's possible, but we're going to talk about that again later. But for most average humans, let's just say I'm talking about like a human perspective. I could sit back and say that I want this and I know that this is who I am, but if I don't put work in, I don't create structure around it, I don't create definition, which is the masculine principle for myself, then I am not a balanced being, and thereby I will wait or may get into unhealthy situations because I'm an unbalanced being within self, trying to get that from an external source, which actually would make me a parasite. So, which is what we don't want. And we see a lot of that walking around. So what that would look like for the average human is, okay, you have a passion, but you create structure around your passion. You know how to work with your masculine and feminine elements to create the life of your dreams, whether you're a man or a woman. Now, let's say that that's me and that's the life that I've created. And let's say that I recognize a desire within myself to co-create with another being, to create a third element, a third magnified existence with a masculine male, right? Now, here's the kicker. He will have had to do the same for himself in order for it to be an optimum union. He will have had to discover his own passions that are lended to him from his feminine side, whatever that looks like for that particular man. And then he created masculine structure, codes of conduct. He created like a whole definition to his subconscious soul's yearnings that would create that man as a whole man. So let's say me as a whole woman, right? I find someone that is a whole man who has done the same type of work, same type of balancing act within himself that I have also done. Then I would know that I would attract people or accept people. I may attract all type of people, but I would accept people or know that the best and greatest good of a partner to unify with is someone that has whose world looks very similar or complementary to mine, or sometimes, and this is sometimes like you'll get people who have opposite worlds that come together for certain reasons. So it's a equation that can have different outcomes, and all of these outcomes are divinely so. Like when you think of like karmic relationships, people who seem like they have nothing in common, or like literally arch enemies, right? Sometimes that third element is what is actually coming in to create balance. But those two elements may never actually find balance in and of themselves. But anyway, so you get two whole beings, right? In an optimum world where people are actually operating in that way, and they are focusing on bringing balance to their own world, but also mastering their dominant principle when in the presence of another, knowing how to merge and switch to create a grand union. Really, two people is only what's involved or required, or even desired, really, because that's understanding that there was enough passion between the two or chemistry between the two to even attract each other to each other in the first place. Like when you see those couples that been together for years and years and years, and it just seems like it's a perfect, like they know that they could be with anyone else, but they actually would choose not to be. Like it's a willing union because each step of the way chooses to be beneficial for both parties' world. Then it's like adding third and fourth and fifth and sixth elements to that can actually taint an otherwise pure, simplified union. Now, so we spoke about how in the other one, that's like two balanced, wholesome beings who have done the work required in order to know themselves, create their world, and know exactly what they're getting into when they're unifying with another person's world. Sometimes, just like in businesses, people seek to merge worlds, and that's where you get structured union, arranged marriages, those type of things. Or people, like, for example, you see this in a lot of noble positions. People will get married because of other interests intentionally. Chemistry may not have brought them together, right? But it's like a different type of energy. It's like a manufactured union. A lot of people are in manufactured unions and they wonder why it doesn't last. Because first of all, they never had the discipline, resilience, patience, or boundaries necessary to sustain such a artificially arranged union. But then you also don't have the soulful part of it that provides the chemistry that can keep on burning till infinity if it needs be. They didn't have that part in the first place. So you get those manufactured unions. A lot of polygamous situations are like that. They're built off of, okay, I'm going to marry you. I may not necessarily have chemistry with you, like in a very soulful way. I'm not talking about hormones. I'm not talking about primitive urges that may or may not last, you know what I mean? Because with all primitive urges, they eventually get quenched. You get satisfied with them. But, so most polygamous situations are like that. They come together not because, like, it is a union that is, like, a soul level. Like, there's different levels of grand orchestration. Some of it is innate. Some of it is actually positioned as such. So when people talk about relationships, it's really layered. And there's a lot of stuff that happens above that people aren't aware of below. So I usually don't like even, like, I'm not talking about with you, but I mean like on Facebook when people start asking all these things. But yeah, so a lot of people get into polygamous situations for some sort of advantage. And I feel like when you get two divine beings together, especially two who know their divinity, they know their truth, they know their infinite natures and capacities to really experience each other and experience many, many lifetimes together. They don't look at it as something that, instant gratification. They don't look at it as something that is rewarding in and of itself. It's an experience. People who have the mentality for divine union are those that value experiences over results. Now, that may sound foreign, especially since experience orientation tends to be feminine, whereas results orientation tends to be masculine. But taking the masculine and feminine principle out of it, because spirit is androgynous in a sense. We're talking about, let's say, natural. I don't want to say natural versus unnatural. I want to say something that's truth versus an illusion, right? Because illusions can be quote unquote real, but they're still an illusion. Two divine beings, like a God man and a God woman, they understand what it is, right? The purest elements are those that are not as deduced, right? So it's like, you can have 4 and 5 people and it could be fun, but it's like, it's actually may turn out to be more so like a circus, right? Or it may be something that is just not necessarily rooted in divine truth. It's like earthly advantage. But this is such a relevant topic for my life between now and the last 2 years. And it's a defining question for sure. I'm the type of person where I don't need 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 15 other people in order to feel like that's what life is about. I feel like if there was enough mutual chemistry built between me and a God man, like somebody who literally is a reflection of the divine itself, just as I am trying my hardest to be, right? Well, I already am. Everything is. Even dirt on the ground is. But you get what I'm saying. Yeah. I would literally be so consumed with exploring the non-existent depths, meaning this person has so much capacity, but I don't want to say depths because depths implies that there's an eventual limit. So I would be so consumed with exploring the limitedness of that person's energy as well as mine own. I'm already in a relationship with 2 people, self and that other person, you know what I mean? So it's like, that's how I feel about that. Like, I could be perfectly fine with that and not have any desire for anything else otherwise, as long as that's divinely orchestrated as so, right? From my soul. I'm not talking about my body. I'm not talking about my spirit even. I'm talking about my soul. Arrange that. And it's like literally, because it's like at a certain level, you are a reflection of all things. And if you can meet a person that is a reflection of all things, and we have such a finite time in this life, this particular life, not other lives, this life, I'd rather really explore the depths of that person, especially if they're a direct reflection of me. To know them is to know me. And the goal of all of this is spiritual transcendence. So yeah, I could be perfectly fine with a simple, like, union. However, here's some other perspectives. There are certain people, you know how we're all on different assignments and in life with our purpose, meaning we all have different unique roles that we are to play in other people's lives. And in the grand scheme of things, activators, especially during this time, recent times, a lot of us have contracts that kind of require us to at least have polygamous periods in life. Because it's kind of like when you think of the nervous system, how there's that catalyst for the spark of the whole brain and the whole like system to get up and running and functioning. So it's like, for example, there could be a man, and I've noticed this actually. I've done a study on all this. That's so funny. A lot of Aries carry this energy, Aries men. But activators, or people with Aries in their chart. But there's different type of divine masculine activators. But for the purpose of this, I'm going to speak about Aries men. Or I'm not going to speak about any zodiac, whatever. Activators, right? They may be, when they talk about chosen few, I don't hate anything, but that term is another one of those terms that has been polluted, okay? Because it already implies ego, the way that most people use it. It's like, To me, the chosen ones are the ones that have chosen themselves, period. Because anybody has not anybody, but any divine being has the potential to be a leader, has the potential to distinguish themselves. But they just have to be the ones to choose that for themselves. So to say the chosen ones, it's like, you mean the ones that have chosen themselves? The choosing ones? Like, and to say only chosen ones have acts, like, it's so hierarchical. And I know that there's like spiritual hierarchy and all that, but we are all having a human experience. And to be human is to understand that you are one with the all. Yeah, okay, you can be your divine self in your divine realm of being, but you are here in the human realm, so you yourself are also imperfect. You know what I mean? Like, that's just so contradictory. Like, the ones that know, they just sit back and laugh because it's funny. And then you have those that parade with trumpets. Oh, only chosen ones, and I think I saw a post, somebody said something like, some of y'all be practicing spirituality and some of us be really about it. Y'all need to stick to your trends. And I'm just like, okay, first of all, we are spiritual beings. There is no harm in people. It wasn't those words verbatim. The words that they said wasn't exactly what I just said. It was more condescending. But I said something along the lines of like, if you claim yourself to be a chosen leader, why would you ever discourage people from at least being curious about spirituality? Would you rather they follow the trend of artificiality? Or would you rather them at least explore spirituality, understanding that when a child first learns how to walk, it may wobble, it may fall, it may put the shoes on backwards, but it's not for the people to sit back and ridicule them, it's to show them the way. I would never turn a person away that's actually open to their divinity. And that's how you know who is quote unquote real and who's not. Like, so funny. Some of us serving as the inspiration for others, we might have had polygamous moments. And I'm not talking about me. I'm talking about in general from what I've recognized, especially in men, is because men in particular carry the coding of DNA. They have the seed, just like any masculine. Energy. It's the seed, which the seed is exactly what tells what a thing is going to be, right? So it's like, and that can also show you. You already know what I'm about to say about like what's going on with our men today and why they need to be supported more than ever, because there's a direct, separate thing going on against them. And I don't care, because no weapon formed against any of my children shall prosper. It's only transmuted into love. It's only transmuted into our strengths. So there's nothing that can be done. See, the mother does not fear the child because she knows that child came from her. And to be one with the mother is to be one with all things, even the thing that created the very things that they think can threaten those which is real. So I have no fear in my heart, and I move how I want to. Yeah, so that was definitely a channel just now. Speaking, I don't know, but whatever. Anyway, so what I was saying is something very important that now I'm trying to reach back and get. But, oh yeah, so some of us as, as masculine beings, as some masculine beings, but also feminine beings, they have polygamous moments of being with a lot of women. It may not be forever. It may be until they have certain assignments, certain people that they have to meet, certain things they have to take care of, certain fires they have to start within certain beings, that they may actually be more promiscuous. However, that some people, that's their whole life. These so-called aka breeders, as I heard somebody referred to as them as, and yeah, it's accurate. They're here to create. Sometimes it's to create a thought form, because what a lot of people don't know about, what a lot of people don't actually, hold on one second. What a lot of people don't know about sex is that men, okay, and clearly, But men play a lot to do with the mentality of not just himself and society, but his woman. And a divine woman is way open. She is fertile ground. I mean, she's boundless energy. Like you will know the difference because she is boundless energy. These are the women that seem whimsical and, they may seem like they have multiple personalities. These are the women who may go about their lives in an undefined way. It may seem like, for example, they change paths. They do all these pure chaotic energy, which is at the top of the pyramid, right? Men with a certain strong coding can fertilize the being of that woman, meaning she will become his amplifier. She will become his carbon copy. She will be his reflection. What was once a woman who reflected all things, the more that she takes in the coding of that man, the more that she takes in his seed, not just through her womb, but through all of her different entrances. Well, oh gosh, I'm trying to keep this PG. But you get what I'm saying. She will take in the being of that man. He will fertilize her existence. She is a blank canvas. And the more in tune she is with her divinity, the less lines she has on that page to fill in and color in. Some women got a whole bunch of intricate lines that can only be filled in a little bit at a time, and sometimes it has multiple colors. Some women have lines on a piece of a page, but you can easily color it in, And some of them, they don't even have the lines on the page. It's just infinite possibilities of what that woman can do, who that woman can be. That is what has always been understood, but what has also always been hidden. Not necessarily by us, but by certain forces, that don't matter, literally do not matter, right? Because at the end of the day, nothing real can be threatened, and things that are fake shall be. Because you can never, ever hurt that, which comes from the... That's that. That's my little tidbit on that. So a lot of men, not a lot of men, but certain God men will have periods of polygamy or promiscuity or being with multiple women because they are fertilizing multiple canvases. And just like a farm, you kind of got to go out there and spread that seed for real. Like, it really be happening like that. And of course, you may not necessarily have a baby with any of these women, but that can also, you don't have to. Sex in and of itself is a creation. You don't have to have a physical creation to have a spiritual creation. If anything, it's more sacred that way. Because as soon as you're born, you start crying and you're already on a timeline to go back to that which is real. So I understand all these things. And as a woman's, I'll send a different, no, it's not that long yet. So men may be physically with a lot of women in order to create that woman in his image if he is a God man. So to connect her back to her divinity through her heart chakras region and sacral chakra, because her womb has to be activated as well and open, and that's her, that's the power center, and that's all. Let me stop. So that woman is connected to her womb again through the regenerative nature of the man. Through the passion that they carry, there are certain ways that he can stimulate certain points that actually connect her to her God center. And from her being connected to her God center, he's connected to his God center, and it's a circuit of energy. Now, how that works with the other foot, you're like, okay, so does that mean that certain God women are also polygamous? Should they also sleep around? Should they also be promiscuous? Well, I'll tell you about that too. Now, here's where a little history comes in. Back in the day, they had what was called so-called sex priestesses. like back in Kemet, Egypt, all of these things. Not just those two areas, of course, but I'm just referring those two because, I'm just saying luxury came out of Luxor, but, it ain't a battle or whatever. It's all one, So as it pertains to women, you know how they talk about these temples that the men would come home to before they could even go to their wives, before they could even go to their families. They had to stop in with the sex priestess first. That's the first woman he saw. See, these women were actually healers, doctors, but without needing the big old accredited medical degree. No, they were real alchemists. And I won't delve into the science because, of course, that is something that's just understood and not necessarily reduced down to words. We don't use words, okay? We use sacred movement and dance, chants and ums and mantras that don't necessarily involve grammatical correctness. You understand? So when it comes to that, divine women, those be the ones more often than not that be labeled pick-me's, labeled she a whore, oh, excuse my language, but she's a charlatan. She gets around. A lot of these women were actually sacrificial lambs whose white fleece was reduced to a mop, right? In the eyes of most mere humans who could not understand, because the woman is very important to a man. And our African people knew that. Come on now, we know that. We value the woman. All this narrative that they try to paint is not true. Most of us do, and anything else is new age. It comes from corruption, but the matriarchy was definitely always something to behold, because men understood exactly. It was like water seeks the thirsty and thirsty seeks the water, okay? It's 80% of life. 80. That feminine energy, which is not necessarily the woman, but is spirit, which a woman is gifted with naturally. So, through history, the world being the world that it had been corrupted into, our women began to lose touch with their true divinity and actually were forced to become of the system themselves. But her truth, the thing she didn't have to go to school to understand, she just had to learn how to tap within, and all would be revealed with each cycle of the moon. Those women became few and far in between, or they became the sex workers. And they didn't care. Some of the best sex workers are the ones that don't care what you got to think about them. They didn't care that nobody understood why they did what they did. And I'm not saying all were pure, but there were some that knew exactly the mission. The ones that would brag, oh, well, he's stressed and comes after work, and I'm the one that he falls in love with. I'm the one to console him when he's down. The sex workers knew all the men's secrets, because it was only to them which that man felt vulnerable enough to reveal himself to. Excuse me, not vulnerable enough, but safe enough to reveal himself to. You see, and that was because not of his openness, it's the woman's openness. That woman was so comfortable within her being that she was the real doctor around town. She was so open and secure and allowed the spirit of what led her to attract who needed to come to her. She had no fear, because she know that spirit would always align you with what is indeedly for you, especially as you do your shadow work and become a stronger pillar within self. So she would attract just the exact man that she would need to service that day. Divine intervention would happen. And did she accept everyone? No. She had, again, remember, she had her world. So she was comfortable, free, open. She knew she was tapped into source and that no weapon formed against her could ever it wasn't even in existence. It wasn't about a weapon prospering. What weapons? I am the weapon. You understand? So that lady, she knew. So, but on the mass majority of scales, some of those women had to turn into what the world wanted them to be based on needing to pay rent or needing to take care of this. And then they started to accept just any client instead of selecting their clients. It was really the degeneration of the divine feminine to her truth. And then they started giving them birth control, messing with their hormones, feeding them flesh and blood, manufactured with neoparticles and all these things to disconnect the woman from their womb, hysterectomies and all these things. They know and they knew. So nowadays, when you have God women that are born into their divinity, they do support a lot of men, or they can go through periods of supporting a lot of men until more women wake up and until, it becomes a domino effect. And then they can rest with their true reflection. Because they see their reflection in all these men. The men are only attracted to them because they show that man his godliness. See, a woman has the power to make a man feel like a king or a peasant. Just by what she sees in that man and just by what she chooses to show back to that man. So a divine feminine being, she doesn't necessarily have to have sex like with these men. A lot of times she does, but she does it in the astral. She doesn't do it physically because, of course, physically we have to keep our vessels pure and clean because we channel these energies. To be a reflector is to be a channeler, didn't you know? So we channel these energies. We channel, for example, you as a male, as a masculine, I channel your energy every time I interact with you. So the greatness that you see in me is the greatness that I see in you. But if I'm so bogged down with so much stuff, then you're going to see shadow. And that's why women, actually, one of the reasons why women had to start having cycles is because they needed that outlet to release all the energy that they would take in. Retreats are mandatory for women, not a luxury. They are mandatory. And this is something that even our ancient African ancestors did. The women would go away during certain times. They would be with the other women. They would be healing. And they would come back, these bright, vibrant beings. Women need other women to nurture them. See, a woman can heal herself. A man has a harder time healing himself. But a woman can heal herself, and being amongst other healers, man, that's the hospital right there. So all in all, polyamory is 1000% possible. I am not against it at all. Women can love multiple people, men can love multiple people, but if those beings don't even know how to properly love, it don't matter if they're loving one person or 5 people. I mean, if they're not loving themselves properly or loving another person properly, then it's going to be more destructive than anything. Or it may just be more karmic than anything. Hence why we'll have different phases of serial dating or having multiple different interests in a lot of multiple different people and actually acting on these interests and playing out these storylines with multiple different people. Usually there's multiple different things going on with that. Now, you can have a system that works for you with compatible partners, having actually really, truly understanding what you're getting involved in. Otherwise, I just consider you as somebody that's serial dating or someone who's seeing multiple people. But it is possible to create an actual system that works for what is needed for that being at that time, because we learn different things from everyone.